The creek ran with a cruel, icy impatience, its waters hissing against the jagged banks as winter gnawed at the land. Snow lay in thick, uneven blankets across the pines and frozen ground, brittle beneath the weight of the wind. The air bit at exposed skin, searing the lungs with every breath. The first light of dawn was gray and pallid, a feeble promise of warmth that would not come. Cole Maddox, 35, moved with a cautious purpose along the ridge overlooking the creek. He was a man who had long surrendered to solitude, his broad shoulders hunched beneath a worn leather coat, the brim of his hat pulled low against the wind. His eyes, the color of dry sage, scanned the ice-choked waters with practiced vigilance. Years of riding alone had sharpened him, honed every sense into a weapon against the unforgiving land. But nothing, no wolf pack, no outlaw, no blizzard, had prepared him for the sound that reached his ears now. It was a wail, thin and desperate, slicing through the frozen dawn. Cole's stomach dropped. The sound repeated, faint but unmistakable, echoing off the snow-laden banks. Babies. He ran, boots crunching against frozen soil, heart hammering against his ribs. The creek was a treacherous ribbon of death, partially frozen, the ice fractured and jagged, the current strong enough to drag a man under. And yet the cries persisted, growing louder as he approached a bend in the stream. Then he saw them, 3 small forms bobbing in the icy current, swaddled in rags and waterlogged blankets. Their tiny faces were red, lips blue, eyes wide with terror. One clutched a tattered cloth. The other twined its fingers helplessly in the freezing spray. The last one was almost hidden beneath a thin sheet of ice, struggling, gasping. Cole did not pause to think. He leapt from a bank, boots hitting the ice with a harsh crack. The water took him immediately, its cold stealing his breath, numbing his limbs. He fought forward, arms plunging into the stream, fingers scraping against frozen debris. His mind screamed warnings, but the cries of the children overrode every instinct to self-preserve. In that instant, memories collided with present danger. His wife, Anna, lost of fever 3 winters past. His own child, stillborn, a ghost he could never forget. He had sworn to avoid attachment, to guard his heart against a world that demanded sacrifice. Yet here they were, 3 fragile lives, entrusted by fate to his hands alone. He seized the first baby, cradling it against his chest. The infant's small body shivered violently, fists clenching the coat that covered Cole's heart. He pulled the child toward the bank, every step a battle against the treacherous ice. The wind tore at him, the creek yanked, but finally he flopped onto the bank, gasping, lungs screaming. The baby coughed, sputtered, and Cole felt the first flicker of hope, but 2 still remained. The current was relentless, the ice breaking beneath him, cracking like distant gunfire. He had no time to mourn the impossibility of what lay ahead. Cole rose, soaked and aching, and hurled himself back into the icy water. His coat, soaked through, clung like a second skin. Each step was agony. Each movement sent shocks of cold up his spine. He reached the second child just as a sheet of ice tilted underfoot, sending both man and infant into the water with a splintering crash. He surfaced, coughing, holding the baby tight. The child's cries were now more urgent, piercing to the wind and the roar of the creek. Cole's breath came in ragged bursts, teeth chattering, fingers stiff and uncooperative. He gritted his jaw, using every ounce of strength to drag the second infant toward the bank. Above the chaos, a flash of memory stabbed him. Anna's face, pale and fevered, the room heavy with silence and sorrow. He had believed he could endure loss without breaking. Yet here he was, confronting fragility of life again, and the weight of responsibility pressing against his chest. He paused only long enough to shake snow and ice from his coat, wrapping the second child against his chest. One remained, one life teetering on the edge, nearly swallowed by the creek. Cole's eyes scanned the water frantically. The third baby was caught beneath a thin, cracking sheet of ice, its tiny arms flailing, tiny face streaked with tears and water. Time was no longer measured in seconds, but in heartbeats, each pulse a countdown. He plunged forward, diving beneath the ice for the final time. The current yanked at him, water stinging lungs and eyes, yet determination burned hotter than the cold. His hands closed on the infant, lifting it from the grasp of the icy trap. Pain seared through his fingers, ice biting deep, but he would not relent. Not this time. Not ever. Cole emerged, staggering onto the bank with the final child clutched against his chest. The creek hissed behind him, angry and relentless, but he had done it. 3 lives saved from the brink. The babies wailed, tiny bodies trembling, but each cry was a pulse of life, a promise of survival. He dropped to his knees, shivering violently, heart racing, arms locked around the children. He checked each in turn. Flushed faces, shallow breaths, a faint warmth beneath the ice-cold clothing. He stripped away the wettest layers, wrapping them in his own coat, whispering ragged reassurances between coughs. Cole's mind raced. How had this happened? Who could commit such cruelty? And why had fate chosen him, a broken man, to bear the responsibility of these innocents? There was no time to ponder long. He had to move, find warmth, shelter, someone who could help, or the creek would claim more lives before the morning ended. From the woods, he heard the faint crunch of boots in snow. Eyes narrowed beneath his hat. Cole scanned the ridges. The horizon remained empty, but instinct told him someone had been watching or following. Fear joined the chill in his bones. Danger was rarely polite in these parts, and he could not afford distraction. Not now. He took a deep, shuddering breath, clutching the children closer. The creek lay behind him, a graveyard waiting for the unwary, but it had stretched miles of frozen plains, silent forests, and uncertain safety. With determination hardening within him, Cole rose to his feet. He would survive the land, endure the cold, and protect these children, even if it meant facing the ghosts of his own past along the way. The wind tore at him as he trudged forward, each step a testament to willpower. The creek receded behind him, but the fight had only begun. Lives were at stake, and a broken cowboy had found a reason to rise. The wind had grown sharper, carving through Cole Maddox's soaked coat and biting at exposed skin. He trudged along the frozen bank, knees buckling under exhaustion, each step a negotiation with the ice beneath his boots. The 3 babies were bundled as best he could. Baby 1, 8 months, still trembling on the bank. Baby 2, 6 months, clutched against his chest. Baby 3 for months, nestled tightly in his other arm. Their cries were muffled by layers of rags and the roar of the creek, but they were alive, and that was all that mattered. Ahead, the sky darkened with low, rolling clouds, heavy with snow. Cole knew the storm would hit before long. It would not wait for man or infant. The forest around him, normally silent but for the creak of ice and distant bird calls, now whispered threats in the rising wind. Every shadow could conceal peril. Every step might lead to disaster. His mind raced. He needed shelter, fire, someone or anyone who could help. He had spent weeks isolated in this harsh expanse after his wife's death, avoiding towns and settlements, yet fate had hurled responsibility upon him with brutal immediacy. He had no choice but to press forward, fighting the storm and the bitter cold. Then he saw movement on the ridge, a figure, slim and urgent, moving with careful speed. Cole's hand instinctively went to the revolver at his hip, muscles coiled for confrontation. The figure halted and raised a hand, revealing a young woman, 28 years old, dressed in a heavy wool coat and fur-lined bonnet, carrying a small satchel. Her eyes, sharp and wary, scanned him with a mixture of fear and recognition. "Please," she called over the wind, voice almost swallowed by the gale. Are you alone?" Cole's gaze shifted to the 3 infants, all still shivering and fragile. He tightened his grip on Baby 2 and Baby 3, keeping them close. "I know. Not anymore," he said, voice ragged. 3 lives. I'm getting them to safety." The woman nodded, stepping closer despite the wind. "I can help. I know a cabin not far from here, just beyond the ridge. Fire, blankets, food. But the storm's coming and we don't have much time." Cole studied her, instinctively measuring the risk. Her eyes held honesty, and the urgency of the storm left him no choice. He nodded once, sharply, then took the lead, boots crunching in snow, guiding the fragile charges toward salvation. The trek through the woods was agonizing. Snow fell in thick sheets, icing over every branch, every footstep. Cole stumbled repeatedly, balancing the weight of two babies against his chest, while baby one followed closely, swaddled in cloth and carried by the young woman, whose name he would soon learn was Clara. The wind cut at them like knives, and the cold had already stolen feeling from fingers and toes. Branches snapped beneath their weight. Each sound echoed through the silent forest, raising Cole's hackles. Wolves, he knew, stalked these parts, drawn to the scent of weakness. But there were more human dangers, too, rogues, desperate men, and men who saw children as leverage. Every rustle, every distant crack of ice, set his pulse racing. "Almost there," Clara said, pointing toward a low, smoke-stained cabin partially hidden by pine boughs. Relief surged briefly through Cole's chest, but it was quickly swallowed by fear. The last few dozen yards were steep and slick. One misstep, one slip, could send them tumbling back toward the creek, back into the freezing water. He took a deep breath, forcing his exhaustion aside. "Stay close. Don't slip." His voice was firm but low, almost a whisper over the roar of the wind. Baby 3 squirmed, tiny fists pushing at his chest, a fragile pulse of life against the bitter cold. Cole pressed onward, muscles screaming, lungs burning, but determination burned hotter than frostbite. Suddenly, a branch snapped to their left. Cole whirled, revolver raised. From behind a snow-laden fir, a man staggered, mud and snow clinging to his coat, eyes wide. He was 32, lean, desperate, and clearly seeking something or someone. "Step aside, cowboy," the man hissed, hand twitching toward a concealed weapon. "Those kids." Cole planted his boots, tightening his grip on the infants. "Back off." "I don't want trouble," he growled. His mind raced. Protect the children, survive, and reach shelter before the storm buried them all. The man snarled, advancing, but the wind and Cole's sudden lunge kept him at bay. Clara whispered a quick plan, moving closer to distract, tossing a small rock that bounced and startled the stranger. He cursed, momentarily thrown, giving Cole the opening to push forward with all his strength. The cabin loomed ahead, its thin smoke trail promising warmth, safety, and life. They slipped and stumbled, but together they reached the threshold. Cole heaved the door open, rushing inside with the babies, and collapsing near the fire Clara had already lit. Heat washed over them like a bomb, and for the first time in hours, Cole dared to exhale. Inside, the cabin was small but dry. A single iron stove burned with steady, crackling warmth, and fur blankets lined the bunks along the walls. Cole set the babies down, checking them carefully. Baby 1, now calm in Clara's arms, sucked weakly on a finger, while Baby 2 and Baby 3 were swaddled as best they could in soaked rags and spare blankets. Cole sank into a chair, the storm outside a distant roar, but relief was tempered by exhaustion and lingering fear. Clara knelt beside him, brushing snow from his coat and whispering, "You did it, they're alive." Cole allowed himself a brief, almost imperceptible nod. It was not triumph he felt, but something far deeper, a flicker of hope, fragile and hesitant. Yet safety was temporary. Through the thin cabin walls, he heard distant shouts, or was it the wind carrying threatening voices? His instincts, honed by years in the wild, screamed vigilance. The children were safe for now, but danger never slept. Someone had abandoned these babies. Someone might come to reclaim them, or worse. Cole's eyes swept the room, landing on Clara. She was young, competent, fearless in her own way, yet there was a softness beneath her determination. He realized that trust, something he had long denied himself, was not a weakness but a necessity. Without it, they would not survive the coming storm, nor the threats beyond it. As the wind howled and snow pressed against the small cabin windows, Cole rose, carrying Baby 2 and Baby 3 to the stove for warmth. Baby 1 nuzzled closer to Clara, eyes blinking against the firelight. Outside, the forest waited, indifferent, unforgiving. Inside, a fragile alliance had formed between a broken man, a determined woman, and 3 tiny lives clinging to the edge of existence. Cole stared at the fire, jaw tight, heart pounding. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within him. The fight for survival, the fight for redemption, and the unspoken promise he now carried. He would not fail these children. Not now, not ever. The night stretched long and cold. But for the first time in weeks, Cole allowed himself to feel something other than grief. Determination had a new companion, hope. And come dawn, the storm might end, but their real journey was only beginning. The wind had calmed outside the cabin, but Cole Maddox's new calm was temporary. His muscles ached, lungs burned, yet he could not rest. The 3 babies, baby 1 8 months, baby 2 6 months, and baby 3 for months, slept fitfully on furs near the stove, fragile and tiny, each breath a reminder of how close the creek had come to claiming them. He stood, gaze moving toward the door, hearing noises that did not belong to the storm. Distant crunching, the snap of snow-laden branches, voices, rough, demanding, urgent. His hand went to the revolver at his hip, fingers tightening around the grip. Years of survival had honed instincts sharper than steel, and the sense of imminent danger prickled through every nerve. Clara, 28, moved beside him silently, her own eyes scanning the cabin shadows. "They're here for the babies," she whispered. Her voice trembled with fear, yet carried determination. "We have to be ready." Cole nodded. He crouched, moving the infants closer, wrapping them as best he could in the dry blankets while keeping them within reach. Baby 3 whimpered, tiny fists stretching toward him, and his heart clenched. He had promised survival, and he would keep that promise, no matter the cost. Through the thin cabin walls, a sharp rap echoed, followed by a voice. Harsh, commanding, unmistakably human. "Open up. We know the children are inside." Cole's pulse quickened. The man outside must be one of those who had abandoned the babies, or someone desperate enough to take them by force. Either way, they were dangerous. He exchanged a look with Clara. No words were needed. They understood the stakes. Cole edged toward the door, keeping the revolver raised. Clara grabbed the poker from the hearth, her jaw tight, stance ready. The first man burst through the doorway. A lean 32-year-old, coated in mud and frost, eyes wild with desperation. Another figure followed, older, grizzled 39, carrying a heavy cudgel. The cabin erupted into chaos. Cole moved with precision, the reflexes of a man who had faced death countless times. Short, sharp commands flew. "Back! Stay where you are." Clara's poker swung, striking one intruder with a clang that echoed off the walls. Cole fired once, a shot to ceiling, startling both attackers. Dust and splinters rained down. Outside, snow swirled as the intruders reeled, but inside, the cabin became a battlefield. Cole ducked, rolled, and positioned himself between the babies and the danger. Each moment was life or death. Each breath could be their last. Yet beneath the adrenaline, a strange clarity emerged. He was no longer just a broken man haunted by loss. He was their protector, their savior, and he would not fail. The fight reached its peak as the intruders lunged. Cole's revolver barked twice, then swung for close combat. Clara, fearless and agile, landed precise strikes with the poker, driving the men back toward the door. Snow blew in with each opening, chilling the cabin, but they held. The intruders, realizing the fierceness of their opposition and the impossibility of reaching the children, finally retreated, slipping back into the forest, leaving a swirl of snow and dust behind. Cole sank against the wall, revolver still raised, chest heaving. Clara approached, brushing snow for his coat. "They won't be back," she said, though neither could be certain. Outside, the wind continued its lonely howl, the forest silent again, yet the danger felt eternal. He checked the babies, ensuring each was warm enough, breathing steadily. The fire crackled, shadows dancing across the walls, and for the first time, Cole allowed himself a moment to reflect. He had fought not only the intruders, but the ghosts of his own past, grief, fear, the belief that survival was meaningless. And yet, here he was, victorious, alive, and holding 3 fragile lives in his arms. The night stretched long and quiet after the attack. The storm outside had passed, leaving a pristine blanket of snow glittering under the pale light of dawn. Cole moved between the stove and the bunks, attending to babies, adjusting blankets, ensuring their small bodies were safe and warm. Clara assisted silently, her presence steady, a quiet anchor in the aftermath. Cole's eyes lingered on baby 2, tiny fists curling in sleep, lips trembling with the faintest whimper. A memory stabbed him. Anna, his late wife, fevered and pale, and the helpless child he had never held. The pain had once been unbearable, a wound he carried alone. But now, he realized that grief had transformed into purpose. Each infant's survival was a bridge from his despair to something new: responsibility, courage, and hope. Clara's voice pulled him from thought. "You did more than survive," she said softly. "You saved them, you've given them a chance." Her eyes met his, a mixture of admiration and cautious trust. Cole felt away her gaze, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition of shared struggle, of humanity standing firm against cruelty. The cabin, small and humble, became a sanctuary. Cole and Clara worked together, preparing simple food, building makeshift bedding, and wrapping the babies in the warmest layers available. Every task was urgent, every action deliberate, yet beneath it all flowed an unspoken tenderness, the fragile beginnings of connection and healing. The morning light grew stronger, illuminating the frost on windows, revealing the pristine snow beyond the cabin. Cole stepped outside briefly, the cold biting at his cheeks. He surveyed the forest, knowing danger had not entirely vanished, yet feeling a rare stillness in his chest. He had faced a storm, faced human malice, faced his own demons, and survived. He now carried not only the weight of the infants, but the burden of redemption and possibility. Clara appeared beside him, her own breath visible in the cold air. She smiled faintly. "They'll be safe. For now, at least. And so will we." Cole nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He had spent years hiding from the world, hiding from pain, hiding from love. But the creek, the storm, the desperate cries of the three babies had shattered that isolation, demanding he rise. He lifted Baby 2 in his arms. Baby 3 nestled against his chest. Baby 1 still cradled gently by Clara. Their tiny movements, their soft sighs, were reminders that life, even when threatened by cruelty and cold, could endure. Cole's eyes hardened with resolve. He would protect them, nurture them, and face whatever came next. The frontier was unforgiving, but he had discovered a strength within himself he had never known existed. In that quiet moment, he realized the full measure of his transformation. The broken cowboy, haunted by loss and grief, had found purpose in the most unlikely of ways. Courage, once thought extinct within him, thrived now in every deliberate action, in every heartbeat of the three children he had vowed to protect. The cabin, the warmth of the fire, and Clara's steady presence formed the fragile beginnings of new life, one built not on solitude but on responsibility, trust, and care. Cole sat beside the stove, the babies safe and asleep, and allowed himself to reflect. The creek had tested him, the storm had tested him, and the men who sought the children had tested him. In each trial, he had discovered that survival was not enough. Action, compassion, and determination defined a man. He would carry that lesson forward, beyond the snow-covered woods, into whatever lay ahead. The days stretched on, sunlight spilling into the cabin, illuminating the faces of the children, flushed with warmth, soft and fragile. Cole watched them, feeling the deep, unshakable bond forged in the icy waters and the blizzard. He had saved them, yes, but they had saved him too, from despair, from fear, from isolation. Outside, the world remained harsh and wild, but inside the cabin, a quiet victory had been claimed. Cole, Clara, and the three babies faced the future together, fragile yet unbroken, their lives intertwined by courage, choice, and unyielding will. And though danger would come again and hardship would follow, the broken cowboy now understood the meaning of resilience, love, and redemption. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the moment sink in, a reflection on the fragile beauty of survival and the unyielding strength of the human heart. And in that quiet he felt, truly for the first time in years, that life, even in the harshest wilderness, could hold promise, and that even broken men could rise.